To set up a new session within the CorePT pressure testing software, simply double click the icon on the desktop. The first thing that happens is that the software checks for updates. Depending on the speed of the network, this can take some time. It then starts the web sync program in the background and then starts the main application. The login screen now shows up. The username is pre-selected from your Windows login name. So I'm going to choose Richard and just click login. The first thing that comes up is the competency user welcome. Make sure that your competency badge aligns with the competency level that you actually hold. If there's any problems, please contact us. It's very important that everyone's competency badges matches their actual competency level. Click continue past this, and what the application will now do is start up. So you can see that the screen looks quite different from the Relcron software. The graphing area is much larger, and you can see on the right hand side the competency level badge is shown on the graph. It tells us that the last session was completed and please set up a new session. Now, to set up a new session, click the set up new session button, and all you essentially have to do here is choose your logging interval. The next session ref is filled in for you. There's no T numbers or anything to fill in, so let's just choose a 30-second logging interval and click create. The next thing is to choose the channel that you would like to perform the pressure testing on. You can see here on this domain we have it set up so there's two pressure testing channels. There's actually two 30,000 psi transmitters on this test rig. However, you could imagine that this could have one 30k and one 1k transmitter, or perhaps only one 30k transmitter and channel 2 doesn't appear here. There is the opportunity to put up to 4 different pressure transducers on this system, but for now I'm just going to leave it as channel 1. You can see that the use is selected, and I'm going to click save. Incidentally, when you do click save, if the calibration is out of date on the transducers, it will not allow you to proceed. So you can see here the next cal date is 2019, so that's very far in the future. We've set up this test serial number on this test transmitter to be very far into the future, but let's say for example you were running a production serial number transmitter and it was out of calibration by a couple of days. When you click save, you'll get an error message and it won't allow you to proceed. You'd need to report that to maintenance. And now we're ready to take readings. So the first thing I guess that we would need to do is load up some tests. We're interested in taking some tests. So what we do is we click the test button, front load from TDS. Let's enter a work order. Now I'm just making a work order up here. Part number P20003765, serial number 2017-0803D. I think that's the format of a serial number, but you guys will be typing this in from a piece of paperwork. Click next. And now we're going to load up the TDS. You'll recognise this form. So I'm just going to choose one test, a 1 minute test here. Click import, return to CorePT. And we're ready to take readings. Click start logging. The first thing it will do is it will ask you to adjust the pressure offset. So you can see that there is a -8, -7 offset. Just click set and this window will close down and it will start logging. Up the top here it tells you how many seconds until the first log. We do try to round off the times before we start taking the logs. So we've taken the first log and now there's going to be 24 seconds until the first graph point is shown, because if you recall we've chosen 30-second logging intervals, so we now need to wait 30 seconds for the first log that's of any use to us comes in. Okay, here we go. And now we've got the graph that we all know. It's telling us that the DAU is available. This grey LED looking thing is actually it's a simulation of the beacon. So when this beacon LED is on, so should the booth beacon. But what we're going to do now is we're going to start doing a test. So essentially in the old system what you would do is you would pressure up, you would do all your pressures, and then after you did all your pressures you would assign the test. This new system is completely backwards to that, but essentially because the old system, the old Relcron system, was the one that was backwards. Effectively what we're going to do is we're going to tell the system what test we're about to do and then we're going to pressure up. So to do that, we'll go to this form here, this button, select the next test to be done. Click that button. I've only got one test, so select that test by clicking anywhere in this row. You can see that it goes green. Now here we've got the opportunity to automatically hunt for a good test. So what we're going to do is we're going to automatically hunt. Depending on what type of test is selected, the automatically hunt for a good test checkbox may be selected by default, and then click OK. So now we have the JSA information. So we're going to tell it that it's a hydro test that we're going to do. We're going to select a TSRA. Now I don't have in-depth knowledge of which TSRAs you're going to be choosing, but you can see that it's only the hydro tests that now come up. So I'm going to say hydro testing in test booth. That's one of the TSRAs that's going to apply. And I'm going to say yes, that TSRA is applicable to what I'm going to do. Documented existing task cost assessments. So I'm going to choose assembly and test has 13. Click yes. And I'm not doing a lifting plan, so click NA. This should start to look very similar to the Word document that you currently fill in for a GSA. Click Save. Pre-test arrangements. Is there a secondary event line? Select one answer. So I'm either going to select yes, where I select my secondary event line, manifold A supplying pressure or manifold B supplying pressure, or also, as was suggested, set up per TDS. Or I can select no, in which case I need to assign the TSRA that relates to no secondary event. So I would pick one of these items. But I'm just going to leave it to the original setup as per TDS. I do have a secondary event line connected. I'm going to click OK, list all potential leak paths. So in the list at the moment, and we can add more, we think that hoses will be a potential leak, we think that fittings will be, and we think that actuators will be. So it appends to the list. Click OK. Can all the above leak paths be monitored? Yes. Have the relevant testing safety instructions been read, understood and implemented? Yes. And then we've got this button here. The tester confirms that they've dried down the equipment before commencing each hydrostatic test. Incidentally, if you hadn't chosen hydrostatic test back at the start, this button wouldn't appear. But I did, so I have to confirm that I'm going to dry it down. Click Next. Pre-test environmental and equipment checks. Once again, this should look very, very familiar to you. So you're effectively saying, yes, everything's in good working order. And then setup checked by tester. So I'm going to say that I've checked my own test, and it just so happens that I'm a blue competency. Incidentally, if you were a competency level that did not allow you to do this test, you would never have been able to select the test in the first place. And likewise, if I typed in the competency level of someone that wasn't okay to either verify or check or do the test, it would come up telling you and you wouldn't be able to proceed. So I now need to get an authorized pressure test verifier. Now you can see that I'm set up for competency blue, however I'm not allowed to verify my own setup, so I can't be my own verifier. However, I do know a man's clock number that is okay to verify me. Now obviously it goes without saying that I'm just doing that because I'm showing you how to work the system. I know Roy's clock number. In fact, it's not even Roy's clock number. 999 is a made up number in the test system. In real life, you would physically go and get a verifier. They would come, they would verify the setup of the job so that they would feel comfortable then typing in their clock number against your setup. Never type in someone else's clock number, even if you do know them. So I then click Save. And then the last question is, will the test be carried out in accordance with approved engineering procedures? I'm just going to click yes there and click Save. We're now ready to do the test. So I'm going to ramp up. And you can see that as soon as a log is taken after I've selected that test and filled in the JSA, the test parameters appear on the screen. So this is a new feature. We're actually showing you the test parameters in real time. So I'm just going to ramp up. I understand that this would normally take a lot longer. I'm just electronically simulating it. So we're going up to 5000 psi. Tweak. So there we go. We've got this caption here that says auto working. So essentially what it's done is it's set the difference between the left selected log ID and the right selected log ID, on the yellow one there, to be a 1 minute duration. So you can see down here on the difference label, I've got a 1 minute duration set up there, and I can see lots of different parameters about what's going on between those 2 points. I can see that the max point between those 2 points, for example, is 5008 psi. So now another log interval has been taken, and we can see that this left selected point is starting to creep up the rising edge of that pressure test. So we're just going to take another couple of logs. Now this is going to, because I'm electronically simulating, this is going to see a valid passed test very quickly. Typically you would be seeing improving trends, you would be seeing leak rates getting better and things, but essentially I'm electronically simulating. So what we've got here is we've got a passed test. We've got, there's the test that we're doing. It's TDS 2003. The maximum pressure was 5250. The minimum pressure was 5000. The pressure drops to 12.5. The target duration is 1 minute. Everything's passed. Now, incidentally, although the maximum pressure drop is 12.5, we don't actually look for that when we're running this algorithm to figure out what a good test is. Actually, what we're looking for is some percentage better than that, and I think we've currently got it set up to 50%. So although that says a maximum pressure drop at 12.5, we are currently looking for 50% of that, which is about 6.25. So it's not like the system is automatically going to say, oh, as soon as I've got to 12.5, oh, that's a good test. It's going to wait, and it's going to wait until it gets a configurable percentage better than that. So essentially at the moment you can see in the background it's still tracking because it's still in auto hunt mode. So if you want, you could just click OK save assignments here, accept improving trends and OK save assignments, but actually there's sometimes stuff that we've got to do in the background. So what you can do is just switch auto off and it will detach those points, and basically it will go back to normal running condition. Those left click and right click points will then detach with the graph. So what we've got here is a view TDS info button. So we've switched the auto hunt off on the session so that we've got a bit more time to explain this to you, but essentially you want to save the test, but you've also got to write some of the test information down on the TDS. So there's a couple of ways to do that, but the first way is just do it at the time, in real time when the test is done. So if I just click view TDS info button, it brings up something that should look very familiar to you. It's really an extract from the TDS document with the test description, test pressure, etc., work order number, and then the IDs that you've got to write into the TDS document. Now, one thing you'll notice about the start ID and the end ID is that they're very small numbers. On the other system, on the Relcron system, what we would do is we would be running ID numbers indefinitely. So when we started this whole thing in 2005, we started at ID 1, and now we've got to 2018, but we're in IDs in the millions, let's say. But on this system, what we decided to do was reset each ID per session. So you're always transcribing much smaller numbers. So it should be less of a pain to you, to be quite honest. So just click OK. And to save the test, all you need to do is you're analysing these improving trends as you do at the moment. Click accept improving trends, and we already know it's a test pass, so that part's been filled out for you. OK, save assignment, and it will save that assignment. You see the 2 markers got put up there. Now, once you've saved that assignment, there is no current test. So if we go back into this form again, there is no current test section to be able to view those TDS parameters. So if you missed viewing the TDS parameters to write them down on your sheet, one way to do it is, I mean, you actually have all the information here, right, in the left clicker box, in the right clicker box, in the middle clicker box. Everything that you need for filling in your data sheet is there. However, what we've done is we've made it a little bit simpler for you. We have this information panel here. So if you go to the information panel, click on View Test Assignments, and then click anywhere on the record that you're interested in. So if you imagine this has got 10 or 12 different records, just choose the test that you're interested in, and then just click, and it'll bring up the same form again. Okay. Just click OK to close that form down. So now what we're going to do is we're going to essentially finish off doing the test. So at the moment, the JSA is in stage 6. It knows that the test points are assigned. So the very next thing it wants to do is it wants to do a post vent down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ramp down, but I'm going to pretend that I'm ramping down, and actually it's a very long ramp down. I'm going to, let's say it's a 4-hour ramp down, and I'm going to be finishing my shift. So I'm just going to ramp it down. You can see the pressure's coming down, but we're in between log intervals, so we'll just wait for the next 30 seconds to come in for the graph to update. We're going to say that I've vented it down a little bit, and then I've turned the vent valve off, and I'm stabilising it because actually I want to hand this over to somebody else. In the information panel, once again, you can see the current user reference, my name. Now, there's actually a change user button there, but it's currently disabled because I've just vented down, and the system hasn't been able to collect enough log points after the vent down to figure out if the system is stable or not. So essentially what we need to do is we need to collect 5 log points. That's what we've got it set to. So if you're, we kind of figured if you were ramping it down and it was a 4-hour vent down, and you stopped halfway through your 4-hour vent down, you would only need to wait 2.5 minutes for it to stabilise, for that button to become available for you to switch user. The reason for this is we need to make sure that that vent valve's closed. We need to make sure that the pressure readings that are coming in are nice and stable, so that the system doesn't think that it's a stabilisation step when it's actually just a very, very slow vent down or something like that, you know. So that's the way that we decided to do it. So what I'll do is I'll just pause the video until the button appears and unpause it again. Okay, so a couple of minutes later, 5 log intervals later, we've got a change user button. So if you wanted to change the user, I'm just going to go ahead and change user. The following user is currently logged in, Richard. I'm going to change it to, let's say, Nigel. Change user. Do you want to change from user Winton Richard to user Jonic Nigel? Yes. And Nigel's got an amber competency. Click continue, and you can see that Nigel's now checked into the session. The competency badge on the session has changed. Now, if we go back to the setup tab, all the way through this session we've been building up a sequence of events for the JSA log. So if I click on here, what's actually happened is we've been taking pictures, taking screenshots of the system all the way through. So far we've captured 6 different GSA set points, if you like. So the first one was adjusting the offset. The next one was verification of setup. The next one was the pre-test arrangements, and you can see that everything that I typed in is captured in this screenshot. The next one is the pre-test environmental equipment checks, the setup check tester, the authorized pressure test verifier. The next one is the pressure ramp up for the test, and the next one is it's actually captured that form stating that I clicked yes, that I'd like to change from Richard Winton to Nigel Jonic. So that's what we do in order to build up a session history of the JSA. So what I'm going to do now is Nigel Jonic's logged in and he's going to complete the vent down. Now there's actually quite a lot more stuff to do as part of the JSA. There's the post vent down checks, potentially verifying the comms test, and then there's a disassembly stage. So there's a few different ways that you can actually do that, and it's dependent on how many tests are logged in. So if currently on this setup I've only brought in 1 test, so we're not going to be going back to this form and selecting another test. You can see that this test is now assigned. If we were going into this test and into this form, and selecting another test, actually that's all we'd have to do, because when we select another test without having first answered all the questions about the post vent down verification for the previous test, it will start asking us questions as to why we never did that. So we don't have another test, so really what we're interested in doing now is either filling in the JSA or closing the session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the session. I've got all my paperwork filled out. I only was doing 1 test, and I'm just going to close the session. When I click close the session, It first of all verifies that all the parts and tests are used. Incidentally, if you did have a test in that wasn't used, it would highlight this in red, and you would have to cancel out. The finish session button would not be shown. You'd have to cancel out and manually delete the test from this screen here. Okay, but we're going to close session, finish session, and then it's asking us to post vent down questions. Was the test completed successfully? Yes. Was the test completed without issues? Yes. Incidentally, if you answer no, there is a section to fill out what issues were encountered. But we're going to say yes. Primary vent gauge, 0. Secondary vent gauge. Confirming entries. Remember, I logged in as Nigel now, so Nigel verifies the secondary vent valve's been opened. And Nigel verifies that all actuators and valves have been functioned. And then click save. Do you need to verify comms? So I'm going to say yes because, well, I'm going to say yes. If you answer no, then it just moves you straight to disassembly. But I need to verify the comms. Click yes. Verification of comms test. I verify that all comms are achieved via both vents or another suitable method of determining vent down has been carried out. And I confirmed that we've ensured that the equipment being tested has been tested for dryness post-test, hydro test only. Once again, if I hadn't selected hydro right at the very beginning, that I wouldn't need to verify that. That button would never appear. So the authorized pressure test verifier is, let's actually say it's Roy. Click OK. 1 out of 1 tests assigned. Are there more tests to be done? We have this question because at this point you could cancel out. You could hit this cancel button, realise that you've not added enough tests, and go in and re-import more tests from the TDS. So we're going to say, although there's 1 out of 1 test assigned, there are no more tests to be done. So click no. So post-test disassembly. Nigel verifies that all gaskets and elastomers are used in the setup are accounted for. Has all the equipment been inspected for damage? Yes. Has the components been returned to a safe state and proven? Yes. Post-test checked by tester, Nigel. And authorized pressure test verifier, Roy. Click save. And that's the session completed. So in a nutshell, in its most simplistic form, that's how to start the system up, import a test in from a TDS, and run the test with auto hunting switched on with full JSA documentation behind it.